Well, good afternoon. It's great to be speaking to you again today on this Thursday Thoughts number 7, I think. I've had a load of fun making these videos. Do hope they've been helpful to you as well. Just to catch you up, if this is your first time tuning in, my name's Simon. I'm one of the leaders and elders at Ascot Life Church, and we thought that during this lockdown, one of the things we might find ourselves doing a bit more is asking those big questions. Questions about life, questions about who God is, who we are, what our role and purpose is in life. Questions that we might not find ourselves asking as much when we're busy with other things, but now might press themselves on us more. And we wanted to just take a bit of time every Thursday lunchtime to offer a brief response to one of those big questions. And you might remember that last week we looked at the question around why Christianity. If there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of religions in the world, why is Jesus the one we should follow? But today I'd love to look at that question, why Jesus, from a different angle, from the angle of what would following Jesus mean for me? Would following Jesus limit my freedom? If I gave my life to Jesus, became a Christian, however you want to call it, won't that limit my freedom? Won't that stop me enjoying life? Won't it put restrictions on me? I think this is a very important question for us to look at, because we are very aware in the modern world that freedom is a key to human flourishing. We know that freedom is one essential thing we need to flourish as humans. That's why maybe when we kind of measure the progress of a certain nation, we will use one measure of how much freedom its citizens have. Freedom of speech, freedom of opportunity, that sort of thing. It's why when we make big life decisions, maybe what job to go for, we will base it partly on how much freedom that job will give us. Will it give us more financial freedom? Will it give us more free time to spend on other things? Will it give us freedom to be creative in that job, or will we be put in a box? And it's also why we're finding lockdown so hard. We have just gone into isolation, meaning that our freedoms have been massively curtailed. That's part of the reason why this lockdown is so hard, is because we no longer have the ability to determine what our lives look like. We're very aware that freedom is a real good. It is something that we need to flourish as humans. And so to then entertain the idea of Christianity and following Jesus, that might seem like a sort of a ludicrous idea in this context, because our view of all religion, maybe particularly Christianity, is that it's something that will take away our freedoms. It's something that won't give us more life, won't give us more freedom, but will restrict it, will contain it. Maybe that's your view of Christianity. My friend Fergal Kelly wrote a blog post about this, and he said something interesting. He said that we often see Christianity as an unwelcome guest at the freedom party. Maybe that's how you view the whole idea of Christianity. It's something that will take away my freedom, that if I follow Jesus, he will stop me enjoying my life. So it's important that we wrestle with this question. And I just want to offer a few responses to this question. Will Jesus limit my life? Will he limit my freedom? And my first response to this question is actually to say yes. In one sense, if you choose to follow Jesus, it will have an impact on your life. It will alter your life. To accept Jesus into your life is to accept some degree of limitation, of restriction. To say anything else would be simply to lie, because Jesus says staggering things in this regard. He says things to his followers like, take my yoke upon you. A yoke is something that would bind two oxen together. It's something that would, bind one to the other. And it's also a metaphor for taking someone's teaching, someone's way of life on you. He's saying, if you're going to follow me, you're going to take my way of life on you. And elsewhere in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. I mean, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a very free way to live. In one sense, to follow Jesus is to embrace some form of limitation, to embrace some restriction. But here's the thing. Here's my second response, and that is that this exact same dynamic is at play whatever we give our lives to. Give your life to anything and it will impact your freedom. To enjoy the best things in life, they will all demand of you to take on some restriction, take on some limitation, whatever it is. In fact, I'd say that to enjoy the best things in life, to enjoy the things that are that we really want to pursue, those things will place the biggest limitations on us. Just think for a moment about, maybe pursuing a dream job. Maybe if, when you were younger, you wanted to become a lawyer or become a doctor or, become the prime minister or something like that. If you have a dream job, if you want to pursue that freedom, that joy of achieving that job, what do you have to do? You have to put yourself under limitations, under restrictions. You have to restrict the amount of time you have for other pursuits and put it into study, put it into work, into effort. You have to surrender years of your life to go to university, to do training, to prepare yourself for this dream job. To have that freedom, that joy, you have to embrace restriction. Or take another thing that we want to enjoy in life. Maybe fitness, being healthy. I know a lot of us are doing Joe Wicks workouts at 9 a.m. every morning. Well, that is a good example of how we will embrace some restriction, embrace some limitation. We're not able to have our lie-in on the weekday in order that we can enjoy a greater freedom, that we can enjoy healthiness or fitness. Or to just have another example, think about one of the greatest gifts that life can offer. The gift of relationship, whether that be friendship or romantic relationship, a marriage or something like that. We are very aware that these things, relationships, demand a huge amount of time and effort. They are very restricting. They place limitations on how you can spend your time. If you're really going to enjoy that friendship and relationship, it demands time, it demands effort of you. But we gladly do it, don't we? We gladly surrender that time and portion of our lives. Why? Because we want to enjoy this greater freedom. We know that to truly enjoy life, to truly enjoy the best things in life, to truly be who we were made to be, we need to embrace some restrictions. And so what follows from this is that true freedom, true life, doesn't come through throwing off all restrictions. No, it comes through embracing the right restrictions. It comes through embracing the right limitations. I mean, you could imagine, can't you, someone who throws off all limitations and only ever does what they feel like they want to do, only ever follows their desires. Now, how would we describe such a person? We describe them maybe as a slave to their impulses. That person isn't free. They're not being who they were made to be. No, they're a slave. They're a slave to their own desires. We know that to be truly free, to truly enjoy life, means that we have to find the right restrictions. We have to find the limitations, the way of life, which will actually give us true freedom, will give us true enjoyment of life. And this might be surprising, but this is actually how Jesus presents himself to us. He presents himself to us as one who can give us true freedom, true life, if we follow him, if we surrender our lives to him. Just want to look at those two sayings of Jesus that I referenced earlier. Firstly, in Matthew 11, Jesus says, "Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I'm lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Love how Jesus says two things there. He firstly, demands that we follow him. He says, "Take up my yoke, learn from me." If you're going to be part of me, if you're going to follow me, there's going to be some restriction. You're going to be bound to me. You're going to take my teaching upon you. But the second thing he says is that this will lead to rest for your souls. In other words, he's saying, taking on my yoke, taking on my limitation, actually, in one sense, won't be limitation at all. It will enable you to find true life. It will enable you to find rest, to say, "Oh, this is what life was all about. This is what I was created for." Jesus gives us the dual statements. He says, "Follow me, take up my yoke, but you'll find rest, you'll find life, you'll find freedom." And secondly, the second saying I referred to comes from Matthew 16, where Jesus says this to his disciples. He says, "If anyone wants to follow me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. But," he says, "whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." I find that last phrase interesting there. Jesus is telling us how to find life. He's almost making a big assumption that the rest of us don't have real life. He's telling us how to find life, presumably because we're currently not living real life. He's saying the life you're living now, it isn't what you were made for. You haven't found your real purpose. You haven't found real life. And after all, we know, don't we, that to find our purpose in life is how we get true freedom. True freedom comes from finding what your design is, what your created intention is. I mean, just think about a boat for a moment. How does a boat find true freedom? It doesn't find freedom by flouting its creator's intentions and, trying to be a car on the road or trying to be a plane in the sky. No, a boat finds true freedom by sticking to its designer's intentions and sticking to the water. That's how a boat is most free, is when it's on the water. We know that to find true freedom, we need to find our purpose in life. We need to find life. And here, Jesus tells us the shocking way to find what we were made for. He tells us the shocking way to live the life we were created for. And he says it's through this. It's through denying yourself, taking up your cross and following me, losing your life, he says. Let's remember what a cross is. It's an execution tool. It's a way that people die. Jesus is saying here a shocking thing. He's saying, if you want to find true freedom, if you want to find true life, if you want to find what your life is really made for, you need to lay your life down. You need to stop doing life your own way and surrender it to me. You need to lose your life for my sake. But he says, if you do this, you will find life. If you submit to me, if you take up your cross, if you die to your old life, I will give you new life. I will give you truly free life. This is the outrageous claim of Jesus. The way as humans we find true freedom, the way we find what we were made for and enjoy life to the full, it's not through throwing off all restrictions. It's not through following all our desires and never letting anyone tell us what to do. No. He says the way to find true life, the way to find true freedom is to surrender your life to me. Is to die to your old life and let me give you new life. Jesus says the way to freedom is to embrace his life, to embrace him as Lord of our life. Now, that is an outrageous claim, isn't it? But how can we trust him when we make this claim? How can we trust him that he's right when he says, if we follow him, we'll find true freedom and life? Well, I think just lastly, there's 3 reasons for this, which I want to go through briefly. Firstly, we can trust Jesus when he says this because, as I've been saying again and again in these videos, Jesus seems to have risen from the dead. You'll remember I talked about this in episode 3 and, haven't really stopped talking about it since because it's so important. If Jesus rose from the dead as he said he would, that changes everything. That means we can trust what he says. It means that we can trust him when he says that dying will lead to life because that's what's already happened to him. He surrendered his life, he took up his cross, and what happened? He came through death and out the other side into imperishable life. The resurrection shows us that we can trust Jesus when he says that when we surrender our life, it leads to true life. Secondly, we can trust Jesus when he says this because of the testimony of thousands of people who have followed him. I don't know if you know any Christians, but if you do, if you ask them the question, does Jesus lead to true freedom? I'm sure they'll tell you 2 things. They'll say, firstly, following Jesus is hard. It's not an easy thing. There's a yoke to bear, and sometimes following Jesus' teachings on matters like relationships or money or how we do our work, how we conduct ourselves, sometimes that is hard. Sometimes it can feel like restriction. But I think they will also tell you another thing, which is that even though taking on Jesus' yoke is hard, it actually leads to true freedom. That life has a kind of naturalness to it. We find our true purpose. Second reason we can trust Jesus when he tells us that he can give us true freedom is that thousands, millions of people, including myself, have found that to be the case. And the third reason we can trust Jesus when he invites us to surrender our lives to him to find true freedom is because we know that he has already surrendered his life for us. He is not asking us to do anything he hasn't done himself. At the end of Matthew's gospel, we see that Jesus was restricted in the most barbaric way. He was nailed to a cross, unable to move. He actually even surrendered himself into death. Why did he do that? The Gospels tell us it was so that he could purchase our true freedom, so that he could defeat the sin in us which restricts us from becoming the persons we were made to be, so that he could give us true freedom, true life that we were made for. This is the third reason why we can trust Jesus when he bids us to surrender our lives to him to find true freedom. It's because we've already seen how much he did to give us that freedom. And I don't know about you, but when I see that he was willing to die for me, when I see that that's how much he loves me, it means that I can trust him when he might ask me to give up things in my life, because I know that he's not doing it because he hates me. He's not doing it because he wants to restrict me. No, he's doing it because he wants to give me freedom. He's doing it because he wants me to enjoy true life. So, to answer the question, will Jesus limit my freedom? Well, in one sense, yes, he will. That's what it means to follow Jesus, is to give up your life for him. But in another sense, no, he will lead you into true freedom. Surrendering your old way of life to him will lead you only into true life and true freedom. And if you want to find out more about who Jesus is, or maybe even come to know him yourself, you'd be more than welcome to email me at simon@ascotlife.church if you want to get in contact, or you can join us on Sunday mornings. We have a live stream church meeting on YouTube and Facebook at 10 o'clock. It'd be wonderful to see you there, but if not, maybe see you or speak to you in a future Thursday Thoughts episode. Thanks very much for listening.